Hi there, this is Brent. I'm a coach, a healer at Intuitive, and today we're going to talk about marketing. We're going to attempt to answer this question that you see above in the title, which is marketing immoral, unethical? Are sales immoral and unethical? This is a really important question because, as it happens now, there are a lot of people, such as myself, perhaps such as yourself, coming into the world of business with something to offer. Could be a product or a service, but on some level wanting to serve the world, wanting to make the world a better place, wanting to create our own living, wanting to make money, wanting to make comfortable money without being, say, overly materialistic about it, just wanting to create a good life of plenty for ourselves on our own terms by selling our own personal wares to the world, offering our true gifts to the world. This is something that is common in a lot of people, and more so as time goes on. Now that's fine, but then we run into certain issues when it comes to the subject of marketing and sales, where without marketing and sales, without a background in these things, without an ability to sell something to the world, well, then you're really at a disadvantage because you can't show up in the lives of your potential buyers, customers, clients, because they're not listening, because you're not speaking in such a way where they will find you and listen to you and buy from you. And so the art of marketing and sales is absolutely crucial. And yet, a challenge that we run into is that if you research, I mean, I haven't researched this in a long time, but back when I was, say buying courses and reading books on marketing, you run into a lot of psychological tactics and a lot of discussions on persuasion, and really a lot of conversations centering around the question of how do I get someone to buy from me? The problem with how do I get someone to buy from me is that when we phrase the question this way, it doesn't sound like I'm terribly concerned about the person that I'm interacting with. It sounds a little bit more like I'm trying to just get money from them and like I don't really care about them. And by contrast, there is a very, very small but emerging field of what we could maybe call holistic marketing and holistic sales, where everybody is served and everybody comes away from the interaction feeling uplifted and feeling like more as a result of this interaction. So I want to talk to you today about what I've discovered as I've been struggling with this idea, and I have indeed been struggling. I feel like I'm finally at a place now where I can talk about this, where there is more to be discovered and more to be clarified and articulated around this subject. But the main difference here is that I finally feel now like I have permission to market in a way that's powerful while still remaining integrous and trusting, for example, that I won't inadvertently trample on somebody's free will or sovereignty out in the world. And this is really important because it means that I can make really powerful, persuasive, compelling marketing, but then also feel completely congruent and know that I'm not being morally or ethically compromised in any way. So as I talk about this, it feels a little strange because I know this is quite a niche problem, but if you're listening to this and if you're resonating with this problem and wanting to hear about what is to follow in this video, then I'm super, super pleased to talk about it with you now, and I hope that this serves you. And please, leave a question in the comments or tell me what you've discovered in the comments as you listen to this, because I would be very interested in opening this up and making this into a larger study with more voices and more contributions. While we're at it, please hit like on the video if you're enjoying this so far, or if you've seen any of my other stuff and you've enjoyed that. It really helps out the channel. Thank you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you just a quick story about how I came into this problem so that you can see how deeply I've gone into it. And then I'm going to share with you what I found. And so I will timestamp. So if I'm telling my own personal story and you get a little bored, that is perfectly forgivable. You can just get right on into the goodies and take this with you. But I'm telling you this story because I think that this is relevant and I think that you will find it interesting. So here we go. Without further ado, let us jump into the study of whether or not persuasion, marketing, and sales are moral or immoral. So in my case, it starts at around grade 8, where there was basically at a certain point, all of the boys and girls in my class had decided that they were basically fed up with me, that they didn't really like me. They're kind of tired of all of my bullshit. And they sort of decided as a class that I was not to belong with them anymore. And I wouldn't be, like, say, invited to any gatherings or outings with them anymore. Of course, this was traumatic. I'm 13. It was a very, very difficult event. And as the weeks and months went on, I made a very, very important commitment to myself that I would learn whatever it would take to be cool, how to be charming, how to be charismatic, how to get people to like me, how to win people's respect, how to get people to want me to be around them, like just this whole thing, like just being cool and charming. I would just, whatever it would take, I wanted to learn how to do it. And so I did. I went into eventually high school and post-secondary school. I did some reading. I would mostly pay attention to people who were super cool and try to emulate what they did. And then basically this study over years, it became a success. And I really did learn how to be cool and how to be charming and how to make friends. And I was able to jump into a lot of social situations, parties, and people who I didn't know, and, introduce myself and get people to like me. And this was really good. I really enjoyed it. I will say at this point, though, that it's not that I had actually achieved a real, authentic confidence. It was really just a facade of confidence that was sufficiently convincing for everybody around me. And so it was workable at the time, although I still felt like the awkward weirdo creep that I felt like back in grade 8. So this would be addressed later. There was also, in the spirit of full disclosure, a lot of manipulation where I'd go into social situations and I was always figuring out how to sort of position myself above people. So people thought, would kind of look up to me, maybe even feel somewhat intimidated by me. And I would, have certain social games that I would play, and sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't work. And so there was a certain amount of manipulation about it too, which will become relevant as we go on. But then finally I leave school and I take my first job, which is to be a charity fundraiser. And so I work in Toronto as a charity fundraiser, and very importantly, I'm on the street. So, my whole job was to stop people who are walking by and be like, hey, can I talk to you for a second, and see if they would be interested to sign up for a monthly donation to the charity of choice. And that's what I did. And I love this job. It was very hard. It was very hardcore. It's like a lot of people rejecting me, saying no. And then the few people that would stop to talk to me about the charity, most of them would say no and decline to donate. And so it's just, it was very difficult to deal with. But, 1 or 2 or 3 people per day ultimately would elect to donate to the charity, and it would be extremely exciting, and it made the whole job worth it. It was just a lot of fun in that way. So as I did this, I spoke with tons and tons and tons of people, and I developed the ability to ask people for money and learn how to enter into this uncomfortable situation, a sales situation, of discussing money with people, asking them for their credit card number, and helping them feel safe as we would go through the process of signing them up. And this would turn out to be very valuable for me later. I also noticed that there were many high and low performing fundraisers in the company that I worked for, and some of them sold in a way that was extremely holistic and loving and respectful. These people did very well, and the sales that they did seemed to be just an offshoot of their personality in some way. They just made it look so natural. And there were other people who did not fundraise in a way that was very holistic and loving, and had very disrespectful methods, which sometimes worked and sometimes didn't. But I did notice that people who would leave their presence did not feel so good about the interaction, regardless of whether or not they signed up or didn't. And a lot of people have had an experience of encountering a salesperson on the street and having a sort of a negative experience, and that would be the kind of thing that I was talking about. So eventually I came to the end of my work, and my then girlfriend, now my wife, Jessica, we decided to leave Canada and go for a big hippie vagabonding trip through Europe and Asia. And so that's what we did. And it was around that time that I started getting really deep into my spiritual practice. So I was reading a lot of Osho at the time, rereading The Power of Now, and really attempting to connect with stillness and silence and to awaken as much as I could. As I was doing this, and I was learning about, say, the power of authenticity and honesty, And at a certain point, I realized in a very crushing, very upsetting, shocking sort of way, I became aware all at once of how false and pretentious I was back in my phase before then. So all of my studies about how to be cool and how to position myself socially, I just realized how false that was. And I started having memories of people coming away from my presence feeling diminished. And I felt so remorseful and even sort of traumatized by some of these memories that I made this commitment to myself in that moment that I would never use these techniques, skills, principles, approaches ever again. I would just put them in a box, seal that box, and never use them, and just see them as basically bad. And so that was fine. And it was fine while I was away from Canada because I had no community while I was away. You know, we'd meet certain strangers, but, you know, there was no need to, you know, I didn't really bond with anybody, you know, terribly deeply while I was away. But then when I came back from away, returned to Canada, all of my friends and family were shocked to discover their once, you know, charming, charismatic Brent suddenly had become very painfully shy and awkward and uncomfortable around people. And my awkwardness and uncomfortableness often made many other people around awkward and uncomfortable as well, which created, you know, feedback loops and made me just want to like shelter up at home, because every way that I had related to people up until that moment, I had disallowed myself from using. And so I was just out naked without any way of talking to people in a way that felt good for me. So, you know, I practiced over a few years learning how to relate to people in an authentic way, and that was a success. But a big challenge came when it came time for me to start my business as a coach. I went into life coaching and then later productivity coaching. And when it came time to actually do sales and marketing, I was in a real crunch because I had promised myself so deeply and profoundly that I would never do anything resembling manipulation ever again. I actually ended up throwing out basically all of sales and all of marketing, to the point where I would put out marketing that was boring and not good looking and sometimes even purposefully ugly or just uninteresting, uninspiring, for fear of, say, being overly inspiring and trampling on somebody's free will and they would buy something from me. Which, as I say it out loud, it's obviously not a real threat, but it felt real at the time. I also came into a sales technique that I bought from a really, I guess a really famous person in the coaching world. I bought a training package on how to sign up high-ticket clients. And I remember buying it and using it, and as soon as I used it, it worked like magic. I just read questions off of a script to somebody that I had met, and they signed up for me and became one of my coaching clients. And I did this a couple times, bam, 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 bam. I signed up people, and it was electrifying and horrifying and amazing. And I just felt like I had just discovered fire. I didn't know what to do with it. And so I actually got so uncomfortable that I started sabotaging my business unconsciously. And it stayed that way for a very, very long time until I found maybe a little bit more of a toned down way to use this that felt more integrous with myself. So that brings us basically up to present day, where I have been able to build a nice business for myself and make a nice living with what I do, and it's been lovely. But there are new levels of success that I feel like I'm ready to create and have been ready to create for a long time, but can't do because every time I prepare to create these new levels of success, I start to brush against the boundary of this oath that I'd made myself to never do anything manipulative ever again, without having a good, strong definition of what actually is manipulation and what is the difference between manipulation and marketing. And so I've been doing a lot of soul searching, and I've been doing a lot of journaling. And after maybe 4 or 5 takes of even this video, which I've already thrown away, this is take number 5 of me even trying to make this to you, I'm ready now to share with you what I've learned about the difference between manipulation and marketing, so that you can take this distinction and do your own marketing with permission to allow it to be compelling and to allow it to work with you, while trusting that you are still properly grounded in ethics and morals and you are not overriding anybody's sovereignty or free will. So with that said, we can now get into part 2. So in no particular order, and this is in no way an exhaustive list, here are some things that I've learned to run by myself before I do marketing, where if I can check all these boxes, then I will feel congruent about putting it out. First and foremost, how holistic is what I'm selling? The more holistically oriented what I'm selling is, the more integrous it is, then the better I can feel about selling it. So for example, if I'm selling cigarettes, or soft drinks, soda drinks, or heroin. If I'm selling something where if the person who I'm selling to uses it, their life, their health, their well-being in some way is diminished, then this is not as moral or as ethical as selling something that improves the well-being of somebody beyond a very quick instant gratification experience. So, selling, a vegetable, some sort of healthy food, or selling some sort of training product, or even providing like a service such as plumbing or construction, or a lawyer service or whatever, something that just makes the world better in some way, and ideally has positive ripple effects that move outward. So the more holistic, i.e., the more people I'm serving, the more people who are benefiting from what I sell, the more moral it is and the better I can feel about it. This is number 1. Number 2 is a question I can ask, which is, am I attempting to be sneaky? So during the phase of learning how to be charming and cool, I had also taken a course on hypnosis. And hypnosis is all about the power of suggestion. And part of hypnosis, being able to speak to someone in such a way where you can lull them into a trance. And one way to do this is to embed suggestions into what you say. So for example, wouldn't it be lovely if you were to relax completely right now? And then just do a whole lot of that. And that's a way of guiding a person into trance. But a lot of marketers, early 2000s marketers, learned how to take that principle and apply it to their marketing, where they'd say, I sure hope you don't buy all my stuff right now, because, I don't know if you know for sure if it's a good thing to buy my thing, you know what I mean? And just embedding stuff into stuff. So that would be an example of sneaky marketing, where if somebody were to draw attention to it, maybe I might be a little embarrassed. So a question I ask myself now is there anything that I'm doing that's attempting to be sneaky, or is everything that I'm doing totally above the board and everything is exactly as it appears to be? If the answer is yes, then I can continue to feel good about it. Question number 3 is, in order to sell something and in order to take somebody through my sales process, am I relying on the person that I'm selling to be on center or off center? This is a really good question. So let's just say I'm selling a really good example is like for my house, every once in a while I get marketing of insurance for my septic lines. They send it to all the houses in our city. It's like $7 a month. And somebody could sell that and say like, hey, just so you know, like you could, your septic lines could crash and it would be terrible. And there's all these reasons to be afraid, and I'm afraid for you. And, and all these terrible things could be coming your way unless you sign up with me. In which case, I'm attempting to put you in a state of fear. I'm attempting to take you off of your center. I'm trying to put you into a suggestible state, a fearful state, a reactive state. So if I need to put you into a reactive state in order to sell something to you, then this means that my sales process is unethical. Whereas by contrast, if I am attempting to keep you grounded in a centered state, where maybe I'll say, okay, just so you know, if you don't buy this thing from me, you run risks A, B, and C. And I'm saying it as a fact, but I'm not trying to put you in an emotional state of some kind. And I'm just stating the reality of what the stakes are if you do or don't buy, then this is ethical, and then I would allow myself to proceed. Am I aligned with truth? This is question number 4. So I've been talking with my group, especially the Sovereign Creators Collective. We've been talking about truth, how to recognize it and how to trust in our ability to recognize it. And a way to plug in with our power and to be powerful in the world is to have a very steadfast commitment to truth. And one way of doing this is to pay very close attention to what you're saying, where as you're speaking, if you ever find yourself to be speaking and then suddenly you're about to say something, but your body does not like what you're about to say. Have you ever had that feeling where your body starts to contract and it's almost like you're choking on it as if you're trying to say it? That would mean you are about to say something false. And then by contrast, if you're speaking and your body relaxes and feels good as you're saying, and they're sort of just allowing communication to come out of you, then this is an indication that you are speaking truth. So always asking myself and always checking in, am I aligned with and am I speaking truth? If the answer continues to be yes, then I allow myself to move forward with my marketing and sales. And then, I have number 5, but this is kind of the same thing. It's like, am I trying to get you to feel or think in a certain way? So, for example, am I trying to convince you of something? So in other words, do my sales and marketing depend on me getting you to believe me? Am I trying to get you to believe me? Or am I trying to get you to adopt a certain perspective? Or am I trying to make you think something? So I'm trying to put a thought in your head. If I'm trying to do that, then this would not be ethical sales. Ethical sales is simply sharing the truth of something. Something that I'm finally realizing now is that, in my coaching practice, in my healing practice, I really, really believe in it. And I hold it in very, very high esteem. But I always sort of speak very lightly about it, say on a video such as this, because I don't want you to think that I'm trying to compel you to buy from me in some way. And so therefore I just play down everything. But what that results in, hilariously, is that people who do sign up with me, they'll have these one-on-one sessions. They'll be utterly, utterly profound. And they'll always tell me about how surprised they are. They'll go whoa, I didn't realize it was going to be like this. Holy smokes, this is amazing. And that's because I always play down my marketing. I always make everything feel like less than it is for risk of, overstating it or something. So what I've developed now, in order for me to speak truthfully about the power and how profound my work is with people, is I just allow myself to be compelled. I allow myself to know what I have and to speak from that knowing, to speak from the power of it and let you do whatever you want. So I'm not trying to convince you. I'm just telling you, my shit's amazing. My work is amazing. And it's so available, and the rates reflect the market value. The rates are relatively low right now compared to what they will be. And you have the opportunity right now, if you're watching this, say, in the summer of 2024, you have the ability to get this work right now. We can go so deep and correct all sorts of beliefs and ideas and perspectives that are causing you trouble, where you're just running into walls and you don't even know why. Quick reframes can just change so much. It's available right now. And if you are at all curious, then there's no risk for you whatsoever to just get a free intro session with me to try it out and ask your questions and let me ask my question and to see if we're a fit for each other. So there, I said it. So that would be an example of a sort of marketing and sales that I feel okay about. That was technically marketing just now, what I told you, but it's just me telling you the truth. So that's it. Those are the 5 things. And again, there will be more, and I will want to speak more about this going forward because again, business itself and sales itself and marketing, there's so many new people entering it right now, and people with the desire to just make the world better, that we need to upgrade how we look at marketing and sales. And so this is just one foray into it. I don't know, maybe there are other people out there talking about it. If you are aware of any, please let me know so I can watch their stuff, because I want this to be a body of study that we all just expand on. Because marketing and sales itself is a truly, truly sacred event when it's done right. I hope you are so lucky as to have a good sales experience in your life, at least once on either side. Because to be sold to by somebody who cares about you and is indifferent themselves about the sale, they don't care either way if you buy or not, they just want to connect you with the right product, it's just as healing and as nurturing as anything else. Just being cared for, being seen, being heard, being understood. So these things can be good, but when we see marketing and sales as negative, it's because we've seen manipulative marketing and sales, or maybe like okay sales, but of a product that makes the world worse, such as tobacco or Coca-Cola. So that's what I came here to say. You can find information for all of my services in a link below. You'll see it in the description. Please hit like on the video. Thank you for watching. And I'll close with this. There is a false polarity that I've been operating from my whole life that only now is truly coming to a close. And it's a polarity between image and substance, where before, in the beginning of my life, it was all image, no substance. And then it became all substance, no image, no glitz, no glitter, no color, no lights, no shine. And really, these are one and the same thing, where the process of receiving the service begins with the marketing. And really good, high quality marketing is the service. You know, if you receive good marketing and good sales, it means you're being taken care of, and it bodes well for what's ahead in terms of the relationship ahead. Those of us who are into holistic business, holistic sales, we're doing this to create lifelong relationships, to plant seeds in order to make the world better over time. We're playing the long game. We're planting seeds and making everything better over time, which is the exact opposite of trying to get a quick win here or there. There's no such thing as a difference between image and substance. They are one and the same thing. The image just reflects the substance. To focus on one is to take away from the other. This is what I've come to know.